Kia ora team, Noel Willoff here. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. But there's one important thing I want to say before you watch this video. I've noticed that over 91% of you who watch our content on YouTube do not subscribe to the podcast. My promise to you is if you subscribe to the podcast, I'll continue to get more of the guests on that you love and make sure that this conversation and this podcast grows to new levels. So please hit that subscribe button. Secondly, a massive shout out to our official sponsor of the podcast, Moana Road. If you want to save some cash and get some of their awesome gears, head to their website and plug in BTS20 and you'll get 20% off all of their products. Save some cash, support the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Bro, thanks for having me.
Stoked we could tee this up, man. And you're obviously in New Zealand for like a little short stint. So pretty glad we could, find the time to have you on.
Yeah, bro. No, it's an honor to be here, bro. Thanks for making the time and appreciate it, bro.
Sure, man.
Excited.
I think what I love with like doing this podcast, man, is like, especially because we've got like a young audience, it's like shining a light on like other young creatives or young people doing cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like our stories are also quite similar in some ways. I was a father when I was 16.
Yep.
I think you were a dad when you were 19.
Yep, correct.
And I think, just becoming a father so early, bro, it just puts your entire life into perspective, eh? It's massive. And you got to do so much growing up. Like, as a teenager with a baby, like you're still growing yourself and you've got to, look after this small human who's accountable to you.
Absolutely.
So, it's just cool to connect with another young dad. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I before coming on here, I think I really recognized that as something that I thought we could definitely connect on. And it's so true, man. It's an experience that I don't think many people can share unless they've been through it,
100%.
So, yeah.
What was it like for you, dude? Because I remember when I was going to become a dad, just being like so terrified and afraid, so much so that I didn't tell my parents until like my daughter was like 3 months old.
Whoa, no way.
Just because I almost didn't want to like accept my new life of being a father. And I just had this stereotype in my head of what like a teen dad was. So I just, bottled it up. Didn't say anything until, Kyla, my daughter, was about like 2 months old and was like going out to see her in hospital after she got born and went to school the next day and didn't say a word to anyone.
Far out.
So I feel like my entry into like fatherhood was a little bit like it was quite negative, to be honest, until I like finally came, actually grew up here and like accepted what life was.
Yeah.
But I'm keen to hear for you, bro. Like, what was that entry like of becoming a dad at 19? Because that's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I was in a very similar position. I had this kind of thing on my shoulders, this weight on my shoulders that was like my whole world's gonna like just be like kind of crumble in front of me. And I think it was difficult for me, like in the moment when it kind of was a certain thing, because I was such an ambitious person growing up. I still am super ambitious, but in that moment when I'm 19 and I'm like, I'm trying to, chase my star and, achieve greatness. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, like none of this is going to be possible because I now have like someone else to look after and my whole life is going to switch from where I thought it was going to now this whole new path that's like completely unknown. And I think like part of me was like, didn't want to do it. And I think like, all the emotions, bro, scared, just like not sure. I think that was probably actually like to date, I think that like the first kind of 9 months between kind of knowing and birth was probably I would say like mentally probably the worst period of my life, just because I was like so unsure of what the future would hold. But in hindsight, like looking back at it now, it's like I wouldn't be I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't, if I didn't stick to it. But it's definitely a scary thing, and I think there's no right time to have children or have a kid. And there's so much like outside noise that is that hinders your kind of perspective of what you're going to make it. And yeah, I mean, far out. It's crazy just like thinking about it, because I don't think I've thought about it for a long time. And like my daughter's 5 this year, and I'm like, oh man, where did that time go? So it's throwback, bro. Thinking about that, crazy.
It's funny because my little girl, she's 10, and I'm getting the same reaction when I say today I've got a 10-year-old to when I said I had a kid when I was 16. Because people, like, I feel like in my sort of more early 20s, people were like, oh yeah, you've got a 5-year-old. Like, yeah, makes sense. But I think just saying that number 10, people were like trying to do the math in their head. I like shitting with them. I'm like, yeah, I'm 41. Like, you're like, what the hell? But no, you wouldn't trade it, eh? It's I'm so grateful and just stoked that I've had my daughter earlier. Like, you've obviously got a lot more energy. I think, in my personal opinion, as like a young man, like we're in the physical peak of our life, man.
I agree, bro. I definitely agree on that one.
Yeah, and you're like a bit more connected in some ways because you sort of like, I've been finding that navigating as Kyla's like, you know, I don't know, having more feelings around like maybe boys or social media or friend groups. It's like I'm not fully disconnected from that. Like I know what social media is. I know all of those other bits and pieces. Whereas I think sometimes if you're a lot older as a parent, maybe you don't even know what the hell like social media is or TikTok or the effects of that.
Yeah. No, it isn't it very interesting, eh? Because I think there is when you're a young father, you compare, you know, yourself to like the norm of like having a child when you're, you know, maybe settled and in your like mid 30s or 40s or whatever. But I think that energy one is massive, eh? And it's really interesting being young around your children, and especially when they start going into like kindergarten or you know, those kind of situations, and you're having to mix and mingle with other parents. And like I think just like especially me at this point in my life at the moment, it's like every parent is like 30, 40 plus, and I just feel way out of place. I'm like, they probably think that's my like sister or something, you know, like it's 100%. Just such a weird like kind of position to be in. But in a sense, like I also am like stoked to be in that position because I'm like, far out, man, when I'm 40 she's gonna be 20, and like that relationship is priceless, you know. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me, having like having my daughter at the age I did, is that relationship building. Like it's because you're still young and you've got the time, like you said, the energy to really like put into them. It's just like, you know, you get that in return. And then, you know, I guess, you know, one of the big reasons I took the leap and went over to Australia was, you know, to maintain that relationship because it was so strong. And it was like, she was 2.5 years old, you know, and it's like, it's already like so strong. So I just can't can't wait. You know, I'm so excited for the future, right? But
that's
the little one.
Yeah. And that's like a decision, if you didn't do, you'd regret for the rest of your life, eh? It's,
absolutely.
Yeah. The amount of stories you hear from like fathers who like just don't have any contacts with their kids, and it's like, and it's their choice that they're doing that. I just don't know how you can do that as a man, eh? It's definitely tough. But no, that's awesome, bro. It's so, I feel like, because, and very similar to what you were saying, like around these like school, kindergarten, whatever, playgrounds, like play dates, you are with the like I'm in the demographic. I'm chilling out with people who are like my parents' age, and it's cool. You meet some like really cool new friends, and it's a wild ride. Were all your friends like quite supportive, bro? Like when you're going through, I guess, that challenging time over that 9 month period, and even when you it's your daughter, eh? Yep. When your daughter was born.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because I'd left like my hometown in Raglan, and I'd left like where I went to school in Hamilton. And a few of my friends had come down to Wellington with me, but I was pretty much starting a new life down here. And I didn't really know many people. So in that kind of, in that phase, it was like, I think I felt quite disconnected from a lot of the people that were around me because I was kind of up here or down here by myself. A lot of my friends were still back home. So yeah, it was, I think, probably not, to answer your question, that I didn't really have much support around me in terms of my friends. but like family was always there. I've always been like super tight with my old man and my mum. In saying that, I think I told my mum on her birthday that I was going to be a dad.
She can't be mad at you.
Yeah, and she was like, oh, you just like, all she said to me was like, you decide what kind of dad you want to be, and that was all she left me with. And I was like,
wow,
crazy. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement. To say,
Yeah. It was like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that. It's like the same kind of thing, like you said. You know, it's one of those things where you just kind of hold it back, and like you're afraid to say anything because of like judgment or, you know, whatever someone else may think of you. And I think like hearing that from my mum was like, far out. Like she, you know, she's not like shouting at me or saying like you've done wrong. It's like she's really putting it into like, you know, the ball in my court, being like, what kind of dad do you want to be? You know? And I think that was super comforting. I think just like understanding that, you know, regardless, I knew that as when I said something, like they're gonna support me because it's family, you know. But to have like that kind of support where it was like, I guess the words just spoke to me in the right way. It's kind of, you know, I was able to like comprehend what she was saying, and I think it was like if she had said anything else, I probably like it may have been a different story. But that just kind of really hit me like, okay, you know, like, you know, this is, you know, I've put myself in this situation, and now I have to, you know, be a man and you know, stand up and be a father, and you know, what type of father do I want to be?
That's powerful, man. There really is. And how good are mums? Because I remember when I first told my mum, and it was like such a hard thing for me to do because I still had this like negative, I was just holding on to a lie for like, about a year basically. And because everyone, when you're, you know, a teenager going to have a kid, it isn't the most positive thing. And I think, you know, maybe rightfully so, you're still, you know, in year 12. But I think I was really buying into that narrative because obviously you tell everyone, they're like, shit, it's negative straight away. And I mean, when I first told my mum, she was the first person to say congratulations to me. Like, congratulations, you're going to be a dad. And that was just like hugely transformational in many ways because I'd only been used to hearing and feeding into that like negative voice in my head that my world was over. And then for someone to actually flip it positive, I was like, this is how I should be holding myself.
Especially someone close like your mum, it's a different it hits differently. The words are a lot stronger than I think from anyone else. I think probably because, you know, our mums carried us, you know, so when you get that kind of feedback, it's like, wow, you know, it really hits home. But yeah, mums are great, bro.
Shout out mums.
Shout out mums,
Shout out mums. So, bro, you grew up in Raglan, which is awesome part of the country. What made you like eventually move down to Wellies? What brought you down here?
It's a good question, man. There's a lot of factors to it, I guess, but I think the easiest way to put it is I spent a decent time in Hamilton where I did my high schooling. And then I spent a bit of time in Auckland as well. And it was kind of just the next big city that I hadn't really spent any time in. And I was going through a bit of a tricky period in Auckland. I left high school in Hamilton to go to Auckland and run a clothing business with my best mate. Shout out Panache.
Shout out. So you left high school early?
Yeah, bro. So we can dig into it, bro.
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Get into it. I left high school 2017, bro. So year 12, end of year 12. Actually, really interesting conversation I had with the founder of I Love Ugly, Wellington, Rhys Rich. Me and Panache were just kind of hungry teenagers that were just like, let's, you know, make something happen. And he was very creative. And he pretty much said to a group of us, look, you know, I want to do a clothing brand, who's in? And no one said anything. So I just kind of had a think about it. And then, you know, I came to him, I said, bro, let's do it. And we ended up, Panache actually ended up working for I Love Ugly. And we ended up getting some time to talk to V about kind of, you know, what should we do? And he just said, look, like leave school and chase your dreams pretty much. Wow. That's what he said. And I was like, I'm talking to this guy that's got this business that's, you know, doing really well, and he's saying like, what's school got for you when you're where you are right now? And I was like, all right, sweet, I'm out.
That's all the convincing you needed.
Pretty much, bro. Yeah, it was like, well, you know, he's kind of right. I don't really want to go down the university route, and you know, this is where my passion is right now, and you know, it's fueling me. And it was just like, kind of like, well, I understand where you're coming from. So I just kind of, took the leap, left high school 2017, and I think the last day of my exam, bro, packed up the Honda Odyssey with my old man and drove up to Auckland, and that was that. Stayed all over the place in Auckland, and we were just me and Panashe were just running this clothing brand called Friends and Enemies, and that was a trip. That was a journey. That period of being in Auckland, and I guess the best way to describe it there was like, I was very naive. I was coming from a small town, moving to a kind of quite a big school, Hamilton Boys, like 2,500 people. I think kind of being in the spotlight a bit, just went straight to my head. You know, I was 16, 17 and like had the spotlight on, and, you know, we're running this clothing brand, and, you know, we'd gone from Hamilton to Auckland, and it was just like, you know, in my eyes at the time, it was like, you know, nothing can stop me kind of thing. And then a couple of wrong decisions, and it all came tumbling down. And I think that was the very first catalyst to probably the journey that I've ended up coming on. Was like, you know, you can spend a lot of time on something, you know, years on something, and you can make one wrong decision, and it can all be taken from underneath you. And that really was like the catalyst for what also, you know, brought me down to Wellington, because I just wanted to, I think, run away from what had been going on and kind of what I'd gotten myself into up there. And it wasn't all like, you know, bad stuff, but it was just, I guess at that time it was like, you know, I didn't want to be associated with kind of where I'd ended up anymore. And I think I'd kind of understood that, you know, I was in a place where I'd been at this like peak of what I thought I was doing, and then all of a sudden I was like, you know, nobody. I actually saw this photo before coming on here, and it was one person sitting in this big crowd, in this big stadium, and it just had heaps of empty seats around it, and it said support, and then the photo next to it was the same like stadium but heaps of people, and it said congratulations. And I feel like that's, I don't know, just reminded me then, but it was like, that's what it felt like, you know. The congratulations was all the way until we lost everything, and then the support there was nothing, you know. It was just me, and I was like, far out, man, like this is crazy, you know. When you're doing well, everyone wants to be there, and then as soon as something goes wrong, it's not no one else's fault but yours, So I think that was the catalyst, bro. That's what really made me just kind of think, I need to get away from this, and Wellington was a fresh start for me. So
you mentioned there was like a few sort of decisions that were made, and then things with the business started to like, you know, go maybe on like a more of a downwards trajectory. What were those decisions? What happened?
So I think Friends and Enemies was a clothing brand. So we were printing on t-shirts, kind of like, you know, just the standard how you get into it, you know, and we were doing really well. We were kind of like, you know, just scaling the business as we go. We'd, you know, put out a collection, and then, you know, we'd sell the collection out and we'd reinvest back into it, you know, and we're being really smart about it. And then once we got into Auckland, I think we started to see kind of opportunity around artists, and because they were kind of in the spotlight in terms of the promotional kind of stuff. And I started kind of pushing for like getting these artists to wear the clothing. And I think that took us down like a path that was the clothing, but also a bit of promotional stuff in the music industry. And we just kind of, I think we got a bit too ahead of ourselves. We did a successful show, an all ages show on K Road, and we sold it out, and, you know, we made a bit of money quite quickly. And then I tried to do it again, and I booked an artist from the States, and he was pretty much a nobody. And I paid for him to come over here and tried to replicate the same kind of idea. Had an under or like a he was headlining, and then I had like the undercard, or the other acts on the bill.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had this perspective of like, like people are going to want to come because there's this guy from America coming, so that's kind of like that's the draw card.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. Like it didn't sell, and I had to cancel the show. And I flew this guy over from the States, and pretty much paid for a holiday for him, paid for everything. He didn't play, canceled the show, and that was it. Like, so it was kind of an interesting twist, because it went from like clothing to then like investing into doing this show and promoting, and it didn't work. And then because of that, the clothing just couldn't continue. And I think, that was the decision. It was, I think, thinking about it now, it was probably just kind of, I think, like I said at the start, I was so naive. I just thought like nothing could stop, it was just like, we're on the top of the world. Like,
drink the Kool-Aid, eh?
Yeah. Just like, and just so many different influences around us as well. And it just didn't work. And it was like, wow, like, that was the real, I think, like stab in the back, or not even stab in the back, like just stab in the chest. It was just like, I've made these decisions, and now I'm here. So I think that was what happened essentially.
What did like losing everything look like for you?
It meant that we weren't in a position to continue making clothing. And we weren't in a position to continue promoting anything, doing any gigs. We were in about $20,000 worth of debt.
Sure.
And some of it was like family borrowed money. The other money was from like reinvesting into the business over the period of time that we were doing it. And it was just kind of like, we just were left with nothing, and it was just like far out, we're scraping to get by, and we couldn't pay our rent anymore, and like everything was, we were just like, kind of at our lowest point, I guess. I remember arriving in Wellington with my car. I had like a 1986 Mazda Familia 323, and it had these like velour maroon interior seats, and it was just like so nice, like such a like nice old school car that was like just I picked up from like an elderly lady that just barely used it, barely driven it. And I just remember having everything I owned in the boot, and I was like, far out, like this is crazy. I've gone from like living in a house with like all my best mates, and doing this thing and making clothes, and just throwing events and stuff, to a complete new city with nothing.
That's hectic, bro. And because how old are you at this point?
18. Just turned 18.
Wow. Like a baby. You're
bro.
You're
naive as
crazy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I was just turned 18. Because I remember living in Auckland, I couldn't put my name on anything because I wouldn't.
Because you're underage.
Yeah, because I was 17. I couldn't put my name on anything. That's what also made it really hard being in Auckland. But I was just at 18.
So what do those like next steps look like for you, bro? You're 18. You're in a new city. You're in Wellington. You've packed up your car full of all your belongings. Over $20,000 in debt with your business partner, I'm assuming. Like that's a lot of weight and pressure to be on like any 18-year-old, anyone, just regardless of your age. What was your perspective at that moment?
I was lost, man. I was like, I think we both kind of turned to each other for the blame, because like we didn't want to kind of admit that it was either of our fault. And I think, it definitely took a toll on our relationship, because we had, I guess the decisions that we'd made ended up like put us in this situation. And I think, it definitely was like a tricky time to kind of navigate, because, we just like, it was just so quick, the turn of events, just, it was so quick that, I think we ended up taking out like our frustration on each other, but both knowing that like, you know, we're still so young and like I think when you're in the moment in that kind of situation, it's like the whole world's crumbling down in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think at the time it's really hard to kind of see past that point. But I think like I've always kind of just been like positive mindset approach to trying to get over these things and like understand like, you know, this stuff like does happen, even when you don't think it is going to happen. But yeah, it was definitely like a weight on the shoulder of both of us, and it took a big toll on our relationship, and it kind of split us for a bit. But for me, it was kind of like, you know, head down. I think because because some of the money was borrowed from family, it was like, for me, I was like, okay, I need to put this right. You know, I can't just like move on and not, not do this. It was like, I need to put this right. And that's what I did.
Yeah. And how do you do that? How do you do that as an 18-year-old, new city?
What did I do? I applied for it was like, okay, how can I get work? That was like the first point. How do I get work? Did
you have housing when you moved down here?
No, I didn't have housing. My best mate's mum was living here, so that's where we kind of crashed for a bit, and then we didn't have housing down here, so it was kind of hopping around for a little bit. In that process, I've met my daughter's mum as well, and I ended up moving in with her, and I just went to work, bro. I ended up getting I was working for a little bit at Platypus in Auckland, the shoe store, and I ended up getting I went through an agency to try and get some labouring work, and they were like, oh, you've done a bit of sales, like what about, you know, would you be interested in doing a sales role? And I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, beggars can't be choosers. I'll, you know, do whatever I can to make this right. And at that point, I think I'd just been like told no from the labouring job, that it wasn't going to happen. And I was like, okay, it's time to pack my bags and go back to Hamilton and stay with my dad. You know, like this is really just, you know, taking it downhill. And then I got an interview at the sales role. And I pretty much just put it on the table, exactly what I kind of told you. I said, look, I'm 18. I've got like $20,000 I need to pay back, and I'll do anything.
Shit. They're like, we want you. You're going to work hard.
I was like, I'll do anything, you know, like whatever it is. And it was for a role in, it was over the phone sales role, telesales, for a company called Electricity Monster. And yeah, I remember sitting in this interview, and next to me was like a group interview, or like two on one kind of thing. And I remember sitting in the interview, and the guy next to me had been working for Vodafone or something for 4 years. And they gave us this exercise where we had like 10 different random words, and you had to put them into a sentence like on the go, and like it had to make sense, or use them in like a pitch kind of situation. And I just couldn't say a word. I just went I just couldn't get it out.
What sort of words were they? What were they having there?
Oh, just real like
potato.
Yeah, random stuff, you know, like flamingo, and like just really like not words that you would use in an everyday conversation. Because I think it was the point of like, okay, how can you think on your toes? And the guy next to me crushed it. He just flew flying colors, and I was just sitting there going, oh my God, like I'm not gonna get this job. But little did I know, I don't know, I can't remember how long it was, but I got the job. And I ended up getting taken under the wing of the manager at the time. Another shout out, Corey. He's top dog. He's still one of my very good mates to this day. He took me under his wing, and the first 6 months was just pretty much intensive like psychology. How do people think? What are you know, how can you speak to someone that and kind of change their perspective, or, you know, it was just like very intense learning. And then it was on the phones, and it was a crazy time, man. We were selling electricity to Australia over the phone. Very
Dude,
random.
Phone sales would be tough. Like, you would have had some phone calls, people just abusing you.
Yeah, bro. Especially like, love Australians. Like I don't want to, no hate there at all. I'm based there. I'm living there. So yeah, it's a great time. But far out, some of them were just so rude, eh? And like I hadn't experienced that yet, and just being told like, you pick up the phone and just getting told to like, get out of here.
Was it like 100 calls, maybe one sale, or like what's the ratio over
I can't even remember,
cold
man.
calling?
I think a lot of it was warm inbound. Some of it was outbound cold. But it was I wouldn't even know how many sales or calls we're doing a day. I would say it would be upwards of 50.
Yeah.
But I think the target was about 10 sales a day. And it was pretty intense. There was like it was a new business. The manager Corey was probably, if I was 18, he would have been about 23.
True,
he wasn't
very
much
young.
older.
Yeah.
And they were cranking. They were cranking. And there was just so many changes in the business because it was startup, and like energy regulations in Australia had just changed. So like every week there was like new things getting put into the script and new legalities that we had to take like care of. And like, it was a very like demanding role, but I just learned so much about talking and how to control your voice. And I think that's what was like the best part about it. Not only did I get out of the situation that I was in with the debt that I had, but I also just learned some amazing skills. Just because I was like, I need to do something else. But along that journey, I managed to acquire some pretty cool skills. So
yeah, it's interesting when people sort of, I guess, like quote unquote hit their rock bottom. We just had this guy called Richard on the podcast, who's the founder of Flight Coffee in Wellington. And he was telling us a story around he ran a cafe and he first went bankrupt in like his sort of mid to early 20s. And he was saying his car broke down, had his wife and his baby in this car. He's like, 25, however, 28. And gets a call from the bank saying he's bankrupt. And he's just sitting on the curb in Wairoa being like, fuck. But he said he felt free. Like he was like,
wow.
he was like, I had nothing else to lose. Which is an interesting take. And that like was the catalyst for him to then start up Flight Coffee, which is like a nationwide coffee empire.
Wow.
So I don't know if you felt that feeling at all. Free, I guess when you got 20 grand of debt you got to repay, it's probably not the most freeing feeling, is it?
Yeah, I don't know about free. I think I've felt that in other experiences that I've had since that. But I think a lot of it was to do with like the age I was, still being 18, 19, 20. It was 18, 19 that period. And yeah, I think just coming from where I'd come from in terms of like being in Auckland and doing what I was doing in Auckland, I think I was probably more just grateful that I'd been able to land this role, and I'd met some great people and been taught some awesome things, and I really felt that I guess that I'd been able to not erase the past, but I'd been able to get over this hurdle and move forward, and I think at this kind of period was where I was like, I'm still so young, there's so much more ahead of me, and when I look back at it now, that experience, I guess now it is quite freeing in a sense, like thinking about that, because I think that was, like I said, the big kind of catalyst to kind of where I've ended up today. But yeah, at the time I probably wouldn't think of anything worse.
Hindsight's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you start, I guess, working like the music scene? Because that was something which you did for, it was like four or so years, sort of managing Rhys Rich, who was also on the podcast. How did you sort of enter into that space, bro?
Yeah, so I think it was just like almost like a seamless transition for me, going from working with artists in Auckland, and kind of just understanding. I think the artists that I was working with in Auckland were a little bit under the radar. They're kind of the underground scene that was kind of making a bit of noise, but like hadn't really reached the label kind of industry yet. Was it sort of like what sort of music was that up there? Was it like sort of SoundCloud rappy sort of stuff? SoundCloud rap. The gig that we did first that went really well, we had Church and AP on, before like the Ready or Not, and before like their kind of their rise in the music scene. So it was like them, and there was a couple of other artists. Lord C's was like pretty renowned in Auckland, and yeah, it was definitely that SoundCloud sound, that underground sound.
Do you know Herman, Skip the Boat?
Yes. I know of him. I don't think I've met him though.
Sort of like similar, because it sounds quite similar, because he's got like clothing label.
Yep.
And then does these, sort of like underground sort of gigs and stuff. And a lot of that is like people who got huge cult followings, but like real under the radar in terms of mainstream sort of music.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was very similar in a sense to, he's done it 10 times better than what we did, but definitely the if I was to give a reference, that's a perfect reference to kind of what was happening. And then it was just natural for me. I think I really enjoyed kind of hosting and being able to help people. I think that's always been a big driver behind what I do. And it just kind of came naturally. I was like, well, Wellington is so-called, big for its creative arts and its music scene. And it was always something, my dad was a music video producer in the UK, in London. And he did that until he came to New Zealand. And that's where he met my mum. So I think there was always something there. And maybe it was like, I just wanted to, follow in the footsteps a little bit. Even though I wasn't, producing music videos, I was always kind of, in and around that atmosphere or environment. And then it wasn't that long after I moved to Wellington when I met Connor or Rhys Rich. And that was a journey, man. That was 4 years of far out. I don't even know how to describe that that journey. It was a lot of experiences, I think is the best way to put it, and good and bad. But being able to, I think like when I first met him, I was blown away by the talent, and I think I was comparing it to what I'd been around in Auckland, and I was like, I've never experienced this kind of talent before. And I thought I kind of had a bit of a knack for like picking up on talent. And I just said to him, look, man, like you're insane. Like we need to do something. Like let me help you with your career kind of situation. And I just was like, I was hungry to make things happen. And I ended up meeting Shan, the DJ. Pretty OG, like don of the music industry in Wellington. And he did similar, took me under his wing and saw the kind of drive I had and put me in the right position to have access to a studio, for instance. So if I did come across an artist that I thought was worth looking into, then we could bring them around to the studio and get them on a microphone and give them a space to practice, or give them a chance to kind of just show what they could do, kind of thing. So there's a lot of work with Shan, the DJ, and then we just kind of like just grew through experience, I think. And went from kind of like not doing too much to just gigging. We were just playing every show we could. True. Graveyard shift, 1 a.m. in the morning. I remember the first one we did actually in Moon Bar on Newtown. Yeah, and all Connor's mates had come. It was like 1 a.m. We're all just so tired. And it was the first time he'd played in a long time. And that was the start. And then we gigged for like 4 years. And that was the main kind of thing. Was just like, how can we keep getting out there and playing shows? And that was a journey. We, it got to I remember sitting on the plane with Connor. I think Benny Balance was there as well, Connor's DJ, and we were flying to Auckland, I think it was, and we just looked at each other and we're like, this is crazy, man. Like we were performing at Moon Bar at 1 a.m. in the morning, and now we're getting
for free drinks.
For free drinks, like in the little like Heine's, in the little little drinks fridge behind in the green room or wherever it was. And now we're flying to Auckland to play a 3,000 sold out show of 3,000 people, and you know, all these things are covered, and it was just like, wow, like we really like made some ground here, and we've come a long way. So that was like a big kind of like, whoa, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, that's cool, dude. Like I guess reflecting on that period of your life, being like a manager for different artists, like what, as you reflect back, like what are some of those highlights, and also equally like what was the sort of lowest moment over that period, or the hardest moment you encountered?
Highlights. Probably start with a good first day. Highlights. I think we got to work with some pretty awesome artists. I think actually probably the biggest highlight out of that time was creating an event we did in Wellington called Deadline Studios. Deadline Sessions, I think it was called actually. And that was we got together 18 musicians from Wellington. Couple from Auckland actually, I think. Is it Valette? Yeah, I think her name's Valette. She flew down from Auckland. We had a producer from Auckland, Joel, fly down. Essentially, what we created was we got into Te Awaha on Dixon Street, through Shan, and we created this kind of a session essentially where we brought 18 people together. We had groups of 3, I believe it was, a producer, a vocalist, and I think an instrumentalist. We grouped them together and gave them 3 hours to make a song, and that was probably one of the biggest highlights, because we had the A&R from Warner come down, Scott McLaughlin.
What's A&R? Is that
artist and repertoire?
Oh yeah, is he like a big music agent?
So yeah, like an agent between like the artist and the like kind of the middleman between the artist and the label. So yeah, he came down and spoke. But the big thing there was just like bringing out all these people that had communicated on social media and wanted to collaborate, but had never had the time to do that.
Yeah.
And to be able to facilitate a thing like that, and we had it sponsored with, you know, free drinks and a bit of food and all that kind of stuff. But to have that many people in a room, you know, together, especially at the end when we gave them the time in the studio, so they all had, you know, 3 hours in the studio. I think it was 3 hours to make a track, and then once we finished, we all listened back to them.
That's cool.
And that was pretty surreal.
That's epic.
You know, both Connor and I kind of front run the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being able to just bring those people out of the woodwork and give them the opportunity to work with each other. Some of them, you know, hadn't worked with each other before, but like I said, really wanted to.
Yeah.
And I think actually Eli Superfly's, one of his EPs had a track that was made at Deadline.
No way.
Yeah,
that's cool.
at Deadline session. So yeah, I think that was definitely one of the highlights. Was like, you know, I felt like it was almost it was where I really wanted to go in that industry, was like being able to help artists. The other highlights were, you know, festivals. What did we do? We did Soundsplash a couple of times, which was pretty cool. And we didn't do R&V. We did a couple of festivals in Auckland. The names are slipping by me. It's been a while now. But I think, yeah, just the cool thing about being in that industry was the experiences for sure. Being able to turn up to a show and just go in the back door and not have to worry about the lines and the crowds, and you know, meeting other artists. We got to meet some cool artists, and you know, get in the studio with like Mellow Downs and some other pretty influential people. I'm trying to think. What's his album Mokai?
Oh yeah,
he's forgetting the artist name.
It's not
Oh no. Oh no.
Anyway, that guy.
Yes.
He's the man. Shout out.
Eno and Dirty.
Eno and Dirty, yes. Yeah,
yes,
right.
Eno and Dirty. Yeah. So just some of like the OGs of the industry was pretty cool, especially in New Zealand. Awesome. So that, and I think, so that was definitely like the highlights, was being able to like kind of meet these people and get around them. doing work with like Connor Pritchard as well. That was really cool, just kind of like being in that buzz. And I think like in terms of the lows, it's hard to I can't even really remember, right?
It must be tough, like juggling, I guess, working with artists, but juggling like the creative side and also like the business side, like the commercial side. I feel like for many artists, they've kind of got like one or the other. Usually it's like more like creative focused, and then like pressure from labels and stuff can make them maybe produce tracks or go in a direction which I don't want to be in. Like I can't even imagine how you would like navigate that on behalf of someone.
Yeah, no, you definitely just sparked the memory there, in terms of that. And yeah, that was really difficult when it started to get to the point where it was a little bit more serious and there was interest from labels coming, and trying to navigate those conversations, because it's just there's so much like intricate detail in contracts. And I was always a big believer of being independent, and yeah, just trying to like, you know, I guess look after the artist in your sense, in what you thought was the right thing to do, I guess. But I think actually the hardest thing about being a manager specifically in the industry was like understanding that even though you're so involved in where the direction of this artist is going, it's actually like not up to you. You know, it's their craft, it's their creativity, it's their thing. You're just there to support them. And I think for me, I was always like wanting to do more and be better and improve. And a lot of the time I'd find myself like wanting to do more, but that wasn't really what, you know, Connor wanted to do. So I was like, you get so like immersed in doing what you're doing, and because you're, you know, like right there thick and thin, like at every show, you know, making decisions on everything that's going on, it's really difficult to remember that it's like someone else's creativity and it's their thing. It's really hard to like draw that line in the sand, especially when like your mates as well.
100%.
So yeah, that was a tricky one, trying to navigate that that kind of thing, because like, you know, I wanted him to be, you know, and I still want him to be a bloody superstar, but he needs to put out some more music. But navigating that was difficult. I
can imagine. Yeah, fuck. He's one talented mofo, eh?
Oh man,
his sound and like just vibe is fucking crazy. Go stream Rhys Rich if you haven't heard of him before. Chuck him on Spotify. I love that song, Red Rover, bro.
Yeah, Red Rover.
Always vibe.
Yeah, that was a crazy thing about Red Rover actually. Got picked up by like a YouTube channel, I think in the States, or like a SoundCloud channel or something, and it just took off.
True.
Yeah, like I think it was at like, you know, maybe 40,000 plays on Spotify, and then it got picked up, and then I think it's over 1 million now.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, it's just like insane how that thing can happen, eh? Like 100%. Just get picked up by a channel, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, it's like 100x'd.
So you just need some like TikToker to do like a little dance, and you're good. You can retire. You're done. It's a wild world out there. So bro, talk to me about your business, 45 Movers. It was cool just being in the kitchen earlier, because you're obviously based in Australia. And then you mentioned to me that you've actually got an entire remote operation. So your business is based in New Zealand, but you obviously manage and operationalize it over in Oz. So talk to us about, I guess, like starting that business. What was like the gap in the market that you saw? And just a bit about the journey to where you guys are today.
Yeah, sure. I think the gap in the market was, was just solely down to needing more for my family, and that the phase building up to kind of where this went was, I was still doing the management stuff. I had my daughter. That was kind of getting a bit tricky because I needed to be there on the weekend, and obviously the music stuff was happening on the weekend. There was also a big factor around like, you know, trading the experience. When I didn't have my daughter, it was all good because I could have that experience, and you know, the finances weren't too much of a problem. once I, picked on that responsibility came up, I kind of had to stop trading my time for experience, and I really needed to get some sort of stability behind me. And then when I went back to work after my daughter was born, I started working for Big Safe Furniture just as an offsider in the truck there, and we're just delivering furniture all over Wellington, just brand new furniture though, so slightly different to house removals. And that's kind of where I learned the trade. How to carry a piece of furniture, how to move it, how to put it together, how to take it apart, how to stack a truck, how to load a truck, how to drive a truck. And then I just went through like this phase of just driving trucks, just like solely for employment, like just trying to drive, moving around different companies, just trying to increase my increase my hourly rate pretty much. And then I started working as pretty much like a logistics manager for a stairway manufacturer. And I had this obsession with diggers, really random. I was just like, I just want to dig a big hole. Like, I don't know why. I just wanted to like get in a digger and just dig into the ground.
It sounds like something that like a 4-year-old would say, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When you're young, you're just like, I fucking love yellow diggers.
Yeah,
I just
still had this thing inside me, and
it was delayed.
Yeah. And then the like easiest step forward to achieve that was to buy a trailer. And I was like, okay, so if I buy my trailer, then I've got something to put the digger on.
Get in there. Wait,
so I got the trailer.
I feel like where is this ambition to use a digger coming from?
I can't remember. I just remember like the reason I got the trailer was for a digger. And the reason I wanted a digger, maybe it was like I was looking at it in a hiring perspective. If I could buy the digger and then hire it out, I think I was probably looking at it from that perspective. True. So from a business angle, but I'd always like, still to this now to today, I'm like, fuck, I just want to buy a digger and dig a hole. Like, I don't know, there's just something about it. Like, what if I find something?
Every man's dream, with basic creatures. Dig.
Yeah, so I got this trailer, and it was pretty dormant for like 6 months. It didn't really do much. I can't actually remember how I kind of got the ball rolling, but a lot of the work was coming off Vic deals, and it was just people like students needing to move stuff here, there, and everywhere. And I was just like refreshing and just going at it. And I was getting all my work through that with the trailer, and then just kind of it was a slow process of like going through that and just taking on whatever I could. Ended up getting a car it was a Subaru Legacy, and I built a roof rack on the top of it, and I had the trailer so I could put beds and bases and anything flat, couch possibly, on the top of the roof racks and tie it in, and then I could put whatever I needed in the trailer. And I was just doing like one-off stuff here and there. I was still working, and then my daughter's mum moved to Australia, and I had my daughter full time, and that's when I stopped being employed, and I was like, I'm gonna just go in and do this, because I had to look after. The dynamic didn't work. The logistics of where I was living, where my daughter was at kindy, and like all that, the travel and the timing, it just didn't make sense. Like for 3 days a week, I'd be doing 5 hours a day at work, and the travel to get to and from kindergarten just was like, okay, this is just like not worth it anymore. So I decided I'm just going to go all in on this and try and make it happen, and went from the trailer to a small kind of box body truck, one of the little class 1 trucks you can drive on your driver's license. I bought that in, it was like Wanganui or something, and it was an ex-rental, and I just used that, and then it was me and my daughter going around the country, moving people's stuff. She was my right hand man. She was just in the passenger seat, and we would do trips to Tauranga and Auckland, and we'd go all over the place really. I would just take her out on jobs, put her in, pack her a lunch, chuck her in the front seat, and give her the give her the YouTube, and she would just watch and eat her food, and then would be back in the truck to the next job.
Wow.
So it was like pretty crazy having her there, and that's where we really built like a really strong relationship, because we were with each other like every day. And even though she was 2.5, like we were just, you know, at the hip. And then she had to, she decided that, or the decision was made for her to move to Australia with her mum, which was difficult. And by this time I was in a where was I at? I think I still had probably my small truck, and then the decision was made for her to go to Oz, and I was kind of left in the situation where I was like, far out, man, I've got this business that's like slowly coming along, but I've also got a 2.5-year-old daughter, and you know, I don't want to let it go. I don't want to let either of them go. So what, you know, what do you do? And I just kept grinding. My daughter moved to Oz. I started visiting her once a month, and I just kept grinding it out. And my goal was to get it to a point where I could just maintain the reputation. And that's all I cared about. I was like, all I want to do is get it to a point where I can leave it and go and be by my daughter, but just maintain the reputation. So how do I you know, pull those pieces of the puzzle together? And where did we go from there? It was kind of just like she left, and then it was just, you know, it was time for me to just really lock in and just make it happen. But it was under a pretty short timeline. I think it was about 6 months. She left in March, and I moved over in she left in July, and I moved over in March. So 9 months it was that we were away. And that was tough, especially for her. Because I could understand, but she couldn't. So every time I left, she was like, where's he going?
Heartbreaking,
you know?
That's tough.
And then she would just freak out, you know. And then she, even when I moved to Oz and I left, she'd still think I was gone and wasn't, you know, coming back. Concept of time for her was just nil, which was really tough. But it was for me, it was head down. I was like, yep, look, I'm going to make this happen. I don't want to give up on this, because I've, you know, put so much into it. And yeah, I kind of, the whole process was like never what I'd been through before. The other businesses that I'd done prior were just kind of like, I guess you could call them like a hustle, or like, you know, a hobby. They weren't set up like, you know, a proper company. And this was the first thing that I was really making traction on, that I was like, okay, this is like something that is going to be set up properly. And I ended up chucking up an ad on Trade Me for workers, and that's where I got my first contractor. At the start, they were all contractors because I couldn't guarantee them hours. And I brought on two guys, two contractors. Miskell, shout out Miskell. He's my day one. He's still with me.
Oh, how good!
It's been almost 2 years now that he's been around. So yeah, that's pretty awesome to have him still on board. And I just worked with him for 6 months. As I moved out of my place where I was living with my best mate into my new partner's place. So yeah, lots of chopping and changing, and then I got him on board. And I remember the first day or the first week, I said, look, I'll give you some work. I had nothing. I had no work. So we stripped out the back of the truck and replied it and put in all these attachments and carpeted the whole thing. And we just tried to make it work for what we had, because I knew I needed to invest in people to, you know,
free yourself up.
Yeah, free myself up. And then March rolled around, bro, and I was in this perspective where my goal was to pretty much like have everything set up so I could remotely manage it. And that looked like I guess software, investing in software. And kind of centralizing everything, that all the moving parts of the back end of the business into one dashboard. So it pretty much like CRM management essentially. And at that, I was very fresh to that concept at that time. I was getting like emails and calls and texts and messages, and they were all just coming from here, there, and everywhere. And it was like, I don't have the mental capacity to deal with all this. And that was kind of the only way forward for me, was like, okay, I need to be able to centralize all this information, so then I can really like work it instead of it just coming from everywhere. So that was my goal, was to just kind of set it up, working with these guys for about 6 months. And then, the time came and I was like, look, I'm out. We're just going to take it as it comes. We're going to just, I was comfortable in the situation that if it didn't work, it didn't work. So I was prepared to move to Australia and lose the business. I was like mentally okay with that. And I think I had to be, because like it was definitely on the cards that could happen. And I put it down to the guys. I mean, like I definitely played a part in making it continue, but there was no guarantee at that time that they would get work. It was like they were still on a contract basis, so it was like, whatever jobs come in, you'll get, but I can't guarantee anything's coming in. So they were putting a lot of trust and risk and taking on a lot of risk, staying around. But I think, testament to them and kind of what I was trying to do was, I hope they did, but at the time, like, believe in the vision. They were like, well, like if he's willing to kind of hand the reins over in a sense, because at that time,
there's a lot of trust, bro, that you're putting on these contractors to like handle and hold your reputation as a business in a country you're not even in anymore. It's it must take a lot from you, because that's your baby, right? To sort of hand over the reins like that.
It was a difficult thing, but it was that thing of like, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You've got a 2.5-year-old that needs your attention, needs your time, and you've also got a 2-year-old business that needs your time as well. But it's like, it's in my head, I'm thinking, if I can maintain this and keep it going, like my daughter's future can be set up, so I'm looking future and like trying to remain present, just for that sole purpose of, making sure that, I can be around to spend time with her. And getting to that point where it was kind of just like, yep, this is what's going to happen, and being comfortable with, it not working out. And then I left New Zealand and I moved to Mildura, which is like, I don't actually know the geography very well, but it's on the border of New South Wales and Victoria, in the middle of nowhere, really. My old man was living there with his wife, and I moved there for 2 months, and I was like doing a bit of removal work over there, still running the business as well as I could, but it was like low season, so it was pretty ugly. It was like maybe 15 to 20 hours of work a week. It was pretty much paying the guys to stay around for not doing any work, so it's pretty scary. I was like, this is probably going to come downhill.
Sure.
And then I moved. We made a decision to, because obviously the reason I'm going to Australia in the first place is to be by my daughter. And at this stage, I'm living 6 hours away from her by car, an hour flight. And I was flying to Melbourne on Friday, picking her up, flying back to Mildura, having her for the weekend, flying back on the Monday.
Shit, man.
Just so I could see her twice a month instead of once a month.
Yeah.
And then by this time, my partner had moved over as well. And we just made the decision we need to move to Melbourne, because it's just where she is, and that's why we're here, And it was just it was hectic to say the least. Moving countries, then like jumping on a bus for 12 hours to Melbourne, pretty much living out of a suitcase. We were just lucky to have some of her family that helped us out with accommodation. And then I got a job as a property stylist in Australia, doing pretty much removal work. And did that for about 3 months. And then in August last year, I left that, and I was like, I had enough saved. And I was like, all right, this is like, I couldn't manage the business and that at the same time, because the time difference, 2 hours. So I was getting up early morning, working on the business, go to work, or start work at 7. So I'd get to work at 5, work on the business for 2 hours, start at 7, work through the day, try and handle calls through the day and like all the running of the business while working, for someone else, and then come home and work in the evening.
Sure.
And
How many hours were you doing like a day, do you reckon? Or like a week? Just not switching off?
Right, like 12-hour days, probably 7 days almost.
Yeah,
it was pretty nasty.
It's tough.
But yeah, it got me to the point where I was like, okay, like, I was surprised that it was still working.
Yeah.
But I was in this this head space where I was like, look, I have this business in another country that's working, like, not 24/7. It's not, it's not doing crazy numbers or anything, but there's a thing here that needs attention. It needs time, and I'm not giving it what it needs. And my restriction was I needed to pay the bills. I need to get money for rent, and I was just like, I couldn't live with myself being in that situation and going, having it not work and then being like, damn, I should have, what if, like, I should have done that. So I just took the leap of faith. I was like, look, I've got a month worth saved up of living costs, and like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm, 24, 23 or whatever it was. What's the worst that can happen? And I just went all in on August last year. I just thought, okay, sweet. And that was where, like, it pretty much all changed. Straight away, it was like, I have so much time. I was so time rich, and I had like all these problems internally with the business that I just didn't know about. And it just really allowed me to look at the business and think, okay, why is this not working? I had the time to like look into Xero, for instance, and like see where all the money, like all the transactions were going and what was being spent where, and why is this not, why are we breaking even every month? Like, why is there nothing, why is there no profit, or like what's going on? So I was able to just deep dive into the business, which that changed everything. That first month was just like insane. I learned so much about it, and then it's been what are we now? May? Just May?
Yeah, May. Yeah. Start of May.
Yeah, so that was August last year.
Wow.
And it feels like it's been years since that happened. But yeah, I mean that was kind of the lead up to get to that point. And within from August to December, I 2.5x the business.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to put it into perspective, we were doing about 20,000 revenue a month, and by December we hit our first 60K month.
Epic, bro.
Yeah, in like 3 months, and it was just like, it's crazy.
It's probably made you think, like, imagine if you started earlier. You know what I mean? How in terms of the size of the business now, bro? How big is the company? What does it look like today?
So it's got there's about 6 people working for us, pretty full-time hours. But we've got probably about 12 total in our pool of people that work with us. And 3 vehicles. So we've got two trucks and a van on the road. And in kind of like mover terms, or mover
what's the mover lingo?
Mover lingo, bro. We've got about 45 cube worth of space.
Yeah.
So all our vehicles are like, we measure in cubic volume.
Yeah.
So about 45 cubic meters of space between the 3 vehicles, and that allows for pretty much a 4-bedroom house.
Yo.
So yeah, I would say about 12 people in total that come in kind of in and out of the business. I'd say probably about 8 of them are on casual contracts, and the rest are we're officially an employer. That was a very interesting kind of phase in the business, going from a contract base to employee or employer base. And we operate only Wellington, so we're only based in Wellington. and yeah, and now I'm in Australia. The business is here, and yeah, it's grown to like I said, about 12 people, 3 trucks,
Huge,
and
man.
they're pretty much operating. We operate a 6-day week,
Mm-hmm.
so Monday to Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just about to kind of split the team up into 2 kind of depots,
Mm-hmm.
to focus on like the primary areas, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's obviously between August and that answer there, a lot of stuff has happened, but that's where we're at the moment. So it's pretty exciting.
That's epic, brother.
Yeah.
Man, you must be so proud, eh?
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Especially, I think from what you said earlier, like just the humble beginnings of being in the truck with your daughter. Yeah, going to like, those early jobs and to what you've grown it to today is pretty inspiring. Like from your daughter's perspective, bro, like what are those memories that you hope she sort of holds on to over that period that you guys went together?
I think it's funny. She had to write something for Father's Day, and I don't know how they do it at they call it Kinder in Australia.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but they must just ask the kids the questions. And her one was, what is your dad good at? And she said, working. What is your dad not good at? Not working. I was like, far out. But I think just she understood, like it's really funny. She's kind of picked up on. She understands, like I'm involved with trucks and coming back to New Zealand, she understands that whole thing now. But I think the thing that she kind of took away from that was just the bond that we created during that time, because it was just like, I just felt like I was, it was all for her. It's just like just me and her against the world. And those memories. We still have a little beer that a customer in Tauranga gave us. We picked up a table from this old lady and this elderly lady, I should say, in Tauranga, and she couldn't believe that my 2.5-year-old daughter was in the front seat of the truck.
So she gave you the little teddy.
She gave her a teddy, yeah, and we've still got it. But yeah, I think we just like just bonded like mad over like, and not even at that age. She was talking, but she, not putting together full sentences.
Yeah.
So I think, probably the bond, bro. Like, it's definitely like brought us together. I don't think if we didn't have that period of time, like where it was us just all the time, I think our relationship would be a little bit like different. But because we kind of went through it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's epic, bro. That's real cool. Yeah, we'll finish up with some like quick fire questions, and we've got like a quote to end with. But just want to say massive shout out, man. Like, this has been such a sick conversation, and I just get so much energy from seeing like, I don't know, other young people taking risks and it paying off for them. So yeah, man, looking forward to seeing where the journey ends up, eh?
Yeah, awesome. No, me too. It's we're in a really like exciting time, I think, with just the time of like just the modern day and what's happening.
100%.
And I think like being in the situation that I've had to put myself in is a really it's really interesting for what it's actually done for the business, because I've had to be remote, because I've had to be away, and I've had to put a lot of trust in these guys. It's allowed me to kind of see a path forward, and to really kind of just understand like what my industry is about. And I feel like I'm, I never thought I'd end up in this industry. I always say to people, it's not, I don't like typical, I don't really enjoy moving furniture. It's not the funnest thing in the world, but what I do enjoy is solving problems and figuring out, tricky things.
What do you think is the ceiling, bro, for the company? Like, you must have some pretty ambitious plans, knowing you.
Bro, to be honest, Uber of moving.
The Uber of moving.
The Uber of moving.
Hey.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I like that. Yeah,
the Uber of moving. But yeah, I'm like hugely passionate about I guess like where the business is going to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, bro, I've been ambitious since the day I was born, bro. And yeah, I just see there's not much of a ceiling, bro. Yeah, when I look at it, I mean, you know, entrepreneurs, they, you know, people think you're crazy when you say these things. And it's I feel crazy. But like, you gotta, you know, that's what you're betting on, the odds of, you know, that's the unknown that we're walking into. And I think, yeah, that's where I'm at, bro. Is like understanding what's actually important for customers in this industry.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if you've ever moved house before or used a moving service before.
Dude, no, and it almost like did my relationship, like next time I'm getting a fucking mover.
It's funny you say that. There's actually a post on my Instagram that says like the best 2 ways to save your relationship, and one of them is to hire a moving company.
100%. Yeah, it almost broke us.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, well, like the traditional is like owner operator. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of you know, older guys out there that just, you know, have been in the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's very outdated, the moving industry. But it's one of those things, especially in this city, that people need, bro. Because you know, family of 4 don't want to be lugging their 4-bedroom house up
Mountain Vic or anything.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, I think like, yeah, a big one for me is understanding, like, because I'm not there to do the physical work, I'm really thinking about like, what is the customer experiencing? And that's just like, it's crazy the small things in a business that make a world of difference.
Yeah.
And it may not even be like how fast the move takes, but it's how easy it is to arrange, or how you know,
how seamless
you know,
it is.
Yeah, how seamless is that experience? And a lot of people just neglect that, I think. And I'm all over that. That's like where I find the most I guess like motivation to do better, and to improve. And I think it all comes from just wanting to be able to, you know, help. That's you know, you're part of an experience for, you know, people that are in a pretty stressful time, but they also, you know, it's an exciting time. They might have just bought their own house or whatever it is. So you're part of an experience that's quite significant in one's life. So to be in a situation where you can help is like, you know, I think that's the most rewarding thing. But being able to see a vision forwards without having to, you know, buy 60 trucks, put it that way.
That's epic, bro.
That's pretty cool.
That's exciting. That's real exciting.
Yeah.
Can't wait for episode round 2 when you got the fucking technology solution for it.
Or you'll be the 45 will be the only moving company you want to move with in a couple of years in Wellington.
That's me. I love it. And we'll chuck a link in the description whether you're listening or watching to this episode, as well as link to your Instagram, bro, so people can stay in touch. We'll finish with these quick fire questions. Bro, what brings you true happiness?
Family, bro.
What is the meaning of life?
That's a good question. I want to say family again, but probably legacy as well.
Following on from that, what does legacy mean to you?
Being remembered for the way you made people feel.
If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
Ambition. And just to go a little bit further on that, maybe being able to be more ambitious and get rid of the fear, because like just one step, you know, take that one step forward.
And last one, what do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
But I think it's fear, to be honest. I think because it's so small, it's really easy to let someone else's opinion get in the way of what you want to create and chasing your dreams. And I think if you can get over that hurdle, because regardless, wherever you go in life, you're going to come across that. But it's the most difficult thing when you're first starting, because it's like seems like a mountain you just don't even want to attempt to climb.
100%. We'll finish on this. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. It's going to cost you your comfort zone and your sense of direction. It's going to cost you relationships and friends. It's going to cost you being liked. But that's the price of evolution. You'll lose it and gain yourself. Cheers.
Bro, that's awesome.
Thanks.